The coronation should have been the proudest moment of Queen Violin's life. Instead, it became the day she learned that crowns were heavier when worn alone. I watched it all unfold from my position in the human delegation, one of 12 representatives sent to witness the first peaceful transition of power in the Silveran Empire in 3 centuries. We stood in the grand hall of iridescent towers, a structure that defied human engineering, crystalline spires that seemed to grow from living stone, refracting the light of 3 suns into rainbows that danced across walls carved with the history of a people older than human civilization. Violin ascended the throne of eternal dawn, her skin the color of deep sapphires, shimmering with the distinctive bioluminescence that marked Silveran royalty. Her hair, white as starlight, cascaded down her back in elaborate braids woven with threads of silver. She wore the traditional coronation robes, layers of fabric that shifted between midnight blue and silver, embedded with stones that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She was 23 in human years, though Silveran aged differently. Young for a queen, but old enough to understand the weight of the crown being placed upon her head by the high priest Tormaven. The ceremony was beautiful, ancient, and according to my cultural briefings, absolutely sacred to the Silveran people, which made what happened next so much worse. "I invoke the right of challenge," the voice rang out clear and cold through the hall. The crowd gasped. I didn't understand the significance then, but I saw Violin's expression, shock, betrayal, and something that looked like her heart breaking in real time. General Keither stepped forward from the military contingent, his own blue skin darker than Violin's, marked with the scars of countless battles. He was her uncle, her father's brother, the man who had trained her in combat since childhood. "The princess is too young, too inexperienced, too soft to rule in these dangerous times," he declared. "I challenge her right to the throne." According to ancient law, law that hadn't been invoked in over a millennium, any member of the royal bloodline could challenge the heir's fitness to rule. The challenge would be decided by the Council of Elders in 3 days. But challenges required evidence, and over the next 72 hours, that evidence materialized like poison seeping through the palace. I was assigned as the human observer to the proceedings, a role that was supposed to be ceremonial. Ambassador Chen had chosen me because I'd spent 5 years studying Silveran culture and spoke their language fluently. I was meant to take notes and report back. Instead, I became a witness to systematic betrayal. Lord Severin, the chancellor who had served Violin's father for 40 years, presented evidence that she had mismanaged the royal treasury. Lady Myrissa, her childhood tutor, testified that Violin lacked the intellectual rigor to govern. Commander Vexel, who had sworn an oath to protect her, claimed she was too weak to command military respect. One by one, the people she had trusted, loved, and believed in stood before the council and destroyed her. I watched it happen from the observer's gallery, required to remain silent by diplomatic protocol. I watched Violin's face grow more closed with each betrayal, her bioluminescent markings dimming until her skin looked almost gray. On the second night, I found her alone in the royal gardens, a sprawling complex of bioluminescent plants that glowed softly in the darkness. She sat by the Fountain of Whispered Secrets, a place where Silveran royalty traditionally came to find peace. She wasn't finding any. "You should not be here, human observer Marcus Cole," she said without turning. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the fractures beneath. This is a private space. I know, I said, violating about 17 diplomatic protocols by even speaking to her. I'm sorry, I'll go. Wait. She turned, and in the garden's gentle light I saw the tears on her face, crystalline things that caught the glow and scattered it like prisms. Why are you here, truly? I should have given her the diplomatic answer. Instead, I told the truth. Because what they're doing to you is wrong, and I couldn't sit in that room anymore watching you stand alone. She laughed, bitter and broken. Alone. Yes, that is the correct word. Her hands clenched in her lap. Do you know what the worst part is? Not that they betrayed me, that I never saw it coming. I loved them. Keither taught me to fight. Severin helped me understand statecraft. Myrissa told me bedtime stories when my mother died, and they all, her voice cracked, they all just decided I wasn't worth their loyalty. I sat down on the fountain's edge, maintaining respectful distance. May I ask you something? She nodded. Are their accusations true? Did you mismanage the treasury? Do you lack the strength to lead? Her markings flared brighter, anger cutting through grief. No, the treasury discrepancies were Severin's doing. He's been embezzling for years. I discovered it 2 months ago and plan to address it after my coronation. Keither wants war with the Gen Collective. I want peace. Myrissa believes in the old ways where queens rule by fear. I believe in ruling by earning my people's trust. She stood, pacing. They don't think I'm unfit to rule. They think I'm unfit to rule the way they want me to. Then fight back, I said. With what? She spread her hands. They have the military, the treasury, the council's ear. I have a crown that will be stripped from me tomorrow and a palace full of people who decided I'm disposable. You have the truth. Truth doesn't matter when everyone has already chosen their side. I stood, and maybe it was insane, maybe it violated every rule I'd been taught, but I couldn't watch her give up. You have me. She stared at me, those amber eyes wide with surprise. You're a human observer. You have no power here. Your own government would disavow you for interfering in our internal politics. Probably, I agreed. But I'm also the only person in this palace who spent 5 years studying your culture, your laws, your history, and I think I know something they've forgotten. Interest flickered across her face. What? The right of challenge requires evidence, but Silverin law also grants the accused the right of testimony under stars, a 24-hour period where they can present counter-evidence without interruption. It's ancient law, barely remembered, but still technically valid. Her markings began to pulse with something that might have been hope. You're certain? I wrote my dissertation on pre-imperial Silverin legal codes. I'm certain. For the first time since the challenge began, she smiled. Then we have work to do, Marcus Cole, if you're willing to help me. I'm willing. Even though it will cost you your position, your government's support, possibly your freedom if this goes wrong. I thought about my comfortable life, my career trajectory, all the safe and reasonable choices I could make. Then I thought about watching this brilliant, compassionate young queen be destroyed by people who should have protected her. Yes, I said, even then. You deserve someone in your corner. Everyone deserves that. She looked at me for a long moment, and something shifted between us, recognition, respect, and the beginning of trust. Then let us show them that loyalty is not dead in the Silverin Empire, she said, even if it takes a human to prove it. We worked through the night. Velen gave me access to her private records while I pulled every obscure legal text I could find. By dawn, we had our case. When the council convened for the final judgment, General Keither stood ready to claim the throne. His supporters filled the hall, confident and smug. Velan stood alone at the defendant's platform, her crown already removed, her coronation robes replaced by the simple white garments of a supplicant. Almost alone. I stood beside her as her advocate, ignoring Ambassador Chen's furious glare from the human delegation. "Before judgment is rendered," I said in flawless Silverin, "Queen Velan invokes the right of testimony under stars." The chamber erupted. Counselors who hadn't thought about that law in centuries scrambled for their legal texts. Keither's face darkened with rage. "That law is archaic," he snarled. "It has no place in modern governance." "But it remains valid law," High Priest Tormaven said slowly, checking his own ancient scrolls. "The human is correct. The right of testimony under stars supersedes even the right of challenge. She must be heard." For the next 6 hours, Velan spoke. She presented evidence of Severin's embezzlement, backed by financial records I'd helped her organize. She demonstrated her military knowledge by reciting strategic analyses that impressed even her harshest critics. She outlined her vision for the Empire, not weak, but evolved. Not soft, but strong enough to choose peace when appropriate and war when necessary. And when Keither tried to interrupt, tried to shout her down, I stepped forward. "Among humans," I said, "we have a saying, character is revealed not in comfort, but in crisis. General Keither, you who speak of strength, showed weakness by betraying a queen you swore to serve. Lord Severin, you who speak of fiscal responsibility, stole from your own people. Commander Vexel, you who speak of military honor, broke your sacred oath." I turned to face Velan, and my voice carried through the silent hall. "But this queen, stripped of her crown, abandoned by those she loved, stood here and fought anyway. Not for power, she could have abdicated and lived in comfort. She fought because she believes in her people and her vision for their future. That is strength. That is honor. That is what a true ruler looks like." Velan's markings blazed like starlight, and I saw tears in her eyes again, but different tears this time. The council deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, High Counselor Zyxara spoke. "The right of challenge is denied. The evidence against Queen Velan is shown to be falsified or exaggerated. Furthermore, General Keither, Lord Severin, and 17 others are hereby charged with conspiracy and betrayal of the crown." Velan swayed, and I caught her elbow, steadying her. "The crown is restored to Queen Velan," Zyxara continued, "and she is granted the right to restructure her council and military as she sees fit." The hall erupted in chaos, some cheering, others protesting. But through it all, Velan stood tall, her crown returned to her head by Tormaven himself. When order was finally restored, she spoke, her voice clear and strong. "I thank the council for their wisdom. My first act as queen is to pardon those who testified against me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even I stared at her in shock. "Not because what they did was acceptable," she continued, "but because I will not build my reign on revenge. Instead, I will build it on justice, compassion, and the courage to choose loyalty even when it's difficult." She turned to me. "Marcus Cole, human diplomat, you risked everything to stand with me when my own people would not. You showed me that loyalty transcends species, politics, and personal cost. I name you royal advisor and keeper of ancient law. If you'll accept." My career was already over. Ambassador Chen would have me on the next ship home. But looking at Velan, this queen who'd survived betrayal and chosen mercy, who'd stood alone and found strength, I knew exactly what my answer would be. "I accept your majesty." The months that followed were challenging. I was officially disavowed by Earth's government, though they couldn't actually do much about it since I was on Silveran sovereign territory. Velan restructured her government, replacing traitors with loyalists and creating new positions that valued merit over bloodline. And somehow, through the work and the challenges and the late nights restructuring an empire, we became friends. More than friends if I was honest with myself. 6 months after the coronation, I found her again in the royal gardens, this time by choice rather than chance. "Do you regret it?" she asked, not looking at me. "Everything you gave up to help me?" "Not for a second," I said truthfully. "Why?" She turned to face me. "You owed me nothing." "I was nothing to you, a foreign queen you'd studied academically. Why risk everything?" "Because everyone deserves someone who will stand with them when the world stands against them," I said. "Because loyalty shouldn't be conditional on political convenience. Because you were right and they were wrong, and sometimes that's enough." She moved closer, her bioluminescent markings pulsing in patterns I'd learned meant deep emotion. "And now? What are we to each other now?" My heart hammered. "What do you want us to be?" "I want you to be my advisor, my friend, my confidant." She reached up, her fingers hovering near my face. "And perhaps, if you're willing, something more. The queen who was betrayed by her own people and saved by a human from Earth. It's quite a story." "It's a true story," I said, covering her hand with mine. "And I'm willing to see where it goes." She smiled, radiant and real. "Then stay with me, Marcus Cole. Help me build an empire worth believing in. Be the loyalty I choose, as I am the queen you chose." I kissed her then, human and Silveran, observer and queen, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of betrayal and built something better. "Always," I promised. "I choose loyalty. I choose you." And in the garden where she'd once sat alone and broken, Velan the First, queen of the Silveran Empire, chose me back.